Hi friends, it's Miss Tara with Niles District Library, and this week on Space is the Place, we are talking about comets. And so today we're going to read Caroline's Comets, a true story by Emily Arnold McCulley. Caroline Herschel's father was first to show her the stars. Caroline wrote about it in her autobiography. I remember his taking me on a clear, frosty night into the streets to make me acquainted with several of the most beautiful constellations after we had been gazing at a comet which was visible. Caroline was born in 1750 in Hanover. Though people in Hanover spoke German, the region was ruled then by the King of England. Caroline's father and brothers were all royal musicians. But their mother thought girls should be taught more practical skills, so Caroline learned to knit. From that day forward, I was fully employed in providing my brothers with stockings. She was also the family scullery maid. Caroline caught typhus when she was 10, and when she recovered, she got smallpox. The first stunted her growth, and the second scarred her face. Her father worried that no man would marry her. How would she live without a husband to support her? Of all her siblings, Caroline loved William the most. The 7 Years' War was raging, and William would be called to fight. To avoid it, he left for England to make a living conducting a chorus and giving piano lessons. Caroline longed for him. In short, there was no one who cared much about me. By the time Caroline was 22 years old, it seemed nothing good was ever going to happen. Out of the blue, William invited her to England, where he had become a successful musician. He would teach Caroline to sing so she could perform with his chorus and earn her own living. After William paid for a maid to replace Caroline, her family grudgingly let her go. William came to fetch her. Before she left, she knitted enough stockings to last her family for 2 years. The journey by coach, ferry, and packet boat took 12 days. In Bath, Caroline settled into her new life, struggling with the English language and customs. William coached her, and before long, Caroline became a popular soprano, and for the first time earned her own money. As William also needed a housekeeper, she became that too. By way of relaxation, we talked of astronomy and the bright constellations with which I had made acquaintance during the fine nights we spent on the Portswagen, traveling through Holland. William wondered what lay beyond the Earth's solar system. Were there other solar systems? How did the stars form? How far away were they? Was there life on planets? On stars? On the moon? To find answers, William read about how to build a telescope. He wanted to build a better telescope than any that had ever existed, but he couldn't do it unless Caroline helped. Of course she would. Caroline became an assistant inventor. Every room in their house was a workshop. Even the piano was buried under globes, ories, tools, maps, books, lenses, and a huge machine for grinding glass. Building a telescope made housekeeping difficult, but Caroline was fascinated. William first tried to make his telescope with a glass lens, but it was impossible to make the lens that was large enough to obtain clear images of the sky. So he made his telescope with a mirror instead of a lens. At that time, mirrors were made out of metal. William built a furnace to melt tin and brass for the mirror, and then fired the mirror in a mold. The mold had to be made of dried horse manure. Caroline's job was to pound and sift the manure by hand. It was an endless piece of work and served me for many hours' exercise. After the mirror was fired, it had to be polished with pitch to make it concave. William couldn't pause even for a minute, or the mirror would mist over and be ruined. While William doggedly polished, sometimes for 16 hours straight, Caroline took care of William's needs. I constantly obliged to feed him by putting victuals by bits into his mouth. She read to him, too. The first telescope was 5 feet long with a 6-inch mirror that magnified 6,000 times. William would look through the telescope and call out his observations, and Caroline wrote them down. They discovered that the great blurry disk of light called the Milky Way was made of millions of stars. Theirs was the best telescope in the world. They used it as often as possible, no matter what the weather. In winter, Caroline's ink even froze. On March 13, 1781, William saw something new. It might be a planet, but no new planet had been discovered for thousands of years. It was a planet. Word of the planet Uranus circulated around the world and made William famous. It started a rage for astronomy, too. An excited King George III and his family visited the Herschels and ordered 4 telescopes from William. King George was appointed William's king astronomer and paid him an annual salary. His music career ended. That meant Caroline's income from singing ended too. Caroline was glad for William, but worried for herself. She had been so proud of the money she had earned. And this is an illustration of the king looking at their telescope. William needed Caroline's help more than ever. He began a sweep of the sky, section by section. To do it, he made a 20-foot telescope. William had to perch high in the air on a rickety scaffolding, often in strong winds. Once he was climbing down, the whole apparatus collapsed, and William was nearly crushed. Another time, Caroline ran in the snow, slipped and fell. At the end of each machine or trough was an iron hook, such as butchers use for hanging their joints upon. And having to run in the dark on the ground, covered a foot deep with melting snow, I fell on one of these hooks, which entered my right leg above the knee. My brother's call, "Make haste!" I could only answer by a pitiful cry, "I'm hooked!" Caroline pulled the hook out of her leg herself. She continued to work on their star catalog while her wound healed. William made a small telescope for Caroline. He taught her math so she could calculate the positions of the stars. I found I was to be trained for an assistant astronomer. I was to sweep for comets. Caroline always did whatever her brother asked. In 1783, Caroline discovered 14 previously unknown nebulae and star clusters and 2 new galaxies. All the time, Caroline did the needlework and sewing, kept William's accounts, and cleaned all of the equipment. In 1786, William went to visit astronomers around Europe. Left by herself, Caroline promptly discovered a comet. Last night, December 21st, at 7 hours 45 degrees, I discovered a comet. This morning, between 5 and 6, I saw it again. It was called the Lady's Comet, and it made Caroline famous. She was the second Herschel to amaze the world. In 1788, William announced he would marry. Caroline tried not to show her sadness. William no longer needed Caroline to be his housekeeper, so William offered to pay her as his assistant. Caroline refused. She wanted a salary from the king like William's. King George agreed, and Caroline Herschel became the first professional woman scientist. While working for the king, Caroline discovered 7 more comets. Her celebrity spread even farther and caused a worldwide enthusiasm for comets. Caroline Herschel has been known ever since as the hunter of comets. Here is the author's note at the end of the book. The astronomer royal of the Herschels, William and Caroline, which was the planet and which was the moon? They were true collaborators, making astronomy a modern science with their rigorous observations and calculations. They found 2,500 nebulae, as well as all of Caroline's comets and William's planet, and much else. The catalog of the sky that Caroline Herschel created became a standard reference work for succeeding astronomers. When William died in 1822, Caroline was grief-stricken. With no reason to remain in England, she moved back to Hanover. Her fame followed her. She was admired and consulted by scientists for the rest of her 98 years. Caroline Herschel was made an honorary fellow of England's Royal Astronomical Society and awarded its gold medal. Caroline died in 1848 and is buried with a lock of William's hair. Caroline's outspoken autobiography tells of the trials of her childhood and her love for William and astronomy. It makes her prickly personality vivid for us, even centuries later. All right, after our great story on Caroline Herschel, we are going to work on a comet project. And these are comet darts. So you can use these as a little competition outside to see whose comet flies the farthest. And it's super easy. It's kind of like a little paper airplane. You've got a weight in here. I used a marble, but you can use, this is a pond rock. These are little stones that you put in fish tanks. All kinds of different things that you can use different weights to see and shapes to see how far or how short the distance that you can get here. So you're going to need some sort of weight in the middle, like a marble. You're going to need some tissue paper. You can use different colors if you want. This one is just a solid blue. You could cut it up into, this is a solid piece. You could cut it up into smaller pieces to make your comet multicolored. And you'll also need some curling ribbon, like you would find on a Christmas present. So we have some purple that we had here in the basement at the library. So what you're gonna do is put your, let me undo mine just so you can see. So I've laid my tissue paper out flat and my marbles in the middle. You're going to gather your paper, and if you wanted to do different colors, you would cut this up into little strips and do different colored strips around. I like the idea of mine being solid. Okay, wrapped it around my marble, and then you take your curling ribbon and you're gonna tie it in a knot around the, over the top of the marble here. All right, do a couple knots to keep it secure. And then you can practice to see whose comet goes the farthest. So you could do all kinds of different experiments with this. As a comet flies through the sky, let's see how far mine's gonna go. Let me pause the video here and get my camera resituated and we'll see what we can do. Here we go. All right, here we go. I've got my comet, so let's see how far it's gonna go. Here we go. Ooh, it went pretty far across the room. So each one of these carpet tiles is 2 feet. So 2, 4, I think we're at the end of 6 feet. Mine went into 7 feet here at the library with one piece of paper and a marble. You could see how different it will fly if you have something heavier. If you had something heavier, do you think it would go farther or shorter? If you had a bigger stone in there, would it go farther or shorter? If you had more ribbon, more paper, would it go farther or would it be shorter? You could have a race between your siblings or whoever is with you to see how far we're going. So let's see. 2, 4, about 6 feet again. All right. Please remember to not throw your comet at our friends. I don't want to get in trouble here at the library. All right, remember kids, keep on thinking and keep on being a scientist. You can do it just like Caroline did. We'll see you on the flip side. Air hugs. Bye, friends.